I'm Sensei John Small, and today's video is about Kuzushi. Kuzushi means unbalancing, posture breaking. It's a crucial aspect of applying throwing techniques, Nage, Waza, the crux of judo. Kuzushi is about balance. If you refer to my Tai Chi video, I speak a little bit about that, about where our center is, and how it's always kind of wavering. It's never really perfectly centered. So in a manner of speaking, Kuzushi is always naturally happening. But it's also always naturally being countered by ourselves, our body, our own sense of balance, proprioception. If you think about the action of bipedal locomotion or walking, you're essentially falling forward. You're losing your balance in a forward direction, and then you're catching that fall with a foot and a step. And that's a good principle to build off of and keep in mind when it comes to Kuzushi. There are basically two aspects to consider. There's the how, and that involves the technique that you apply, and there's the when, and that's the timing of applying the technique. So when looking at the when factors, there are various things to consider in terms of your opponent. His stability, that relates very much to his stance, how much he's dropped his center of balance, the stance orientation. As you may know, that very sideways, you have 2 points on the ground. When your feet are on the ground, there's always going to be 2 points. And if those points are lined up with each other, then that's strong and stable. You're going to have a hard time working against that direction. On the other hand, if those points are in such a way where there's a perpendicular energy on the line to those 2 points, then this is going to be very, very weak. So you want to take that into consideration when you're thinking about applying Kuzushi. So for example, if somebody has stepped forward with 1 foot, there's a line between the 2 points on the feet, and there's a perpendicular direction, which means he's more prone to being able to be thrown that direction or that direction, depending on what technique you want to apply. So paying attention to the footwork, the opponent's footwork, is important. It's also important to realize the direction of energy in which he's traveling, or where his energy is going. So in this example with the feet forward, if his energy is going forward, then that direction would be the direction you want to take advantage of and throw. Likewise, if he's in a retreat mode and that's what has set his feet in this direction, then you go with that energy and you think in terms of throwing perpendicular to the line off in that direction, applying a suitable technique for that. And of course, if you can recognize his intentions and anticipate those, that can give you an advantage in applying Kuzushi. Which brings us to the how to apply Kuzushi. It's important to think in Kuzushi that a lot of it really is involved with the hands. You're really looking to take advantage of sort of Kuzushi that's already happening naturally and amplify it. And using the hands to do that is a real good way. There's a couple considerations. There's really two primary forces at work. You have straight line forces, and then you have circular forces. So there's a lot of principles to consider. One is the concept of sort of a push-pull principle. So let's say I have 2 of his arms here, and I pull on one arm and I push on the other. So I'm utilizing these straight forces here. But there's a relationship to the circular as well, and you want to be intimately familiar and understand this relationship. So for example, if I look in terms of a hoop, as I push one way or the other and pull with the opposite, there's also a circular action that begins to happen. There's an axis in the center. And if you think in terms of the shoulder girdles, one gets pushed one way or the other. There's a center axis right more or less on my spine. So you're actually also working with circular energies if you understand and realize that they're there and can appreciate that. And in that way, straight energies can become circular. Likewise, circular energies can become straight. If you think of, I don't know, a merry-go-round, for example, something spinning around and then something lets go, it's going to shoot off in a tangent, in a straight line, tangent-wise, and that can be an important consideration when you start thinking in terms of circular momentum and then driving it off in a straight direction, coming off of that momentum. That can be useful to consider. And likewise, circular can redirect straight momentum. That's a principle that really kind of comes into play in our ukemi a little bit. We're heading to the ground in a straight kind of fashion, but we think to try to take advantage of an arc off that circle and turn that vertical momentum into horizontal momentum through that arc manner. And likewise, circular momentum can be disrupted by straight momentum. Something's spinning around and gets resisted by a straight and strong enough force, then it can really put an end to that circular energy. Another thing to consider is, I spoke of the center of balance. That's a place within us that's located about 3 finger widths or so below our belly button. It's not out on the surface of our stomach, it's internally inside of us, halfway between our front and our back. There's a center to us. And understanding that center of balance is important. If I had, let's say I have 2 opponents, we have an uki, he who's going to fall, and a tori, and uki's energy is going this direction, and let's say tori steps in, blocks him in some way, but the center of the stick is down here. So if I am high above that center, all it's going to do is block. Not going to have that sort of ability to throw. But if I get below the center, if tori manages to get himself down below the center of the stick, then with that forward energy, it doesn't take much to flip over the top. And that's really kind of the principle that we're looking to achieve when we're getting below the center. So a ball is a great representation of Kuzushi in a lot of ways. It can help to represent that place of center. There's a video on YouTube somewhere of Kyozo Mifune, the great judo master, utilizing the ball to discuss the principles of Kuzushi. And as a master, I think he certainly knows what he's talking about. And when you think about it, it's really a pretty profound concept in a lot of ways that illustrates it well. Because Kuzushi really is an energy that can go any of the 360 directions, 360 degrees, any of all directions. Left, right, forward, backward, up, down, or any combination of all of it. So a ball is a great representation of how to think in terms of Kuzushi. It's also really good in that regard because in a lot of ways you want to think of yourself becoming spherical and like a ball when you're throwing. So if you had an opponent, for example, and you think you get him stuck here, and then you get that ball action happening with your opponent stuck to yourself, and you can see the result as he can get thrown. So a lot of our throws really kind of operate on that principle. If you think about something like Katagaruma, for example, in a lot of ways it's quite circular. Getting in underneath. Now, you got various directions, as I say, of how you can apply the circular energy. Here we're getting it more vertical, getting in underneath. You're kind of creating a circular action. You're making yourself sort of into a ball. Say a Nage is a better example, perhaps, to illustrate that. You're coming in under, getting in under the arm, pulling on the arm here and really turning yourself into a ball as you pull him tight against yourself. And he's going right along with you as you circle yourself around in that way. Taitoshi is an example of course, where you're thinking more in terms of circular momentum. That's horizontal in that regard. But you're still kind of applying that same ball-like principle. You're making yourself round in your energy and making the throw happen. And so much of that really comes within the hands, within using the hands. So you can see how using a hoop like that can help to illustrate that some. But in the same way, and this I perhaps touch upon a little bit in my stretching the stick video, in the same way you kind of create circular energies while you're doing sort of that push-pull action. You can create that, you know, I'm pulling down with the arm on a katakiruma as I'm sort of pushing up underneath, but it creates that circle action on the center axis of the stick. I think that pretty much covers most of it. It's a broad topic and something you can get really deep into studying and understanding, so there's much left unsaid for sure. But that should give you some ideas of some things to think about in regards to Kuzushi. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Sayonara.